What's up, guys? How you doing? Happy Friday. Hope you've had a good week. As you can see here, I'm sharing my screen. Let me find the right. Let's see if I can find the right. Yeah, I like that better. I like that better. Sharing my screen so you guys can see the Crawford and Porter weigh-in. It looks like we're just getting started here. So hopefully they don't take too damn long with this. Of course, you're going to have a bunch of chit-chat between Joe Tessitore, Tim Bradley, and Mark Kriegel. Anyway, so let's talk about this fight a little bit. All right. I asked you guys on Twitter, I actually posted a poll. How excited are you for the Crawford Porter fight tomorrow night? And there's three choices. There's flaccid, there's half erect, and there's full salute. And so far, almost half of you are at full salute. So I know that poll is probably going to trigger a few people out there. I don't give a shit. People need to have fun. And some of you ladies will be like, well, what the hell? There's no option for me. Yes, there is. All you have to do is briefly identify as a man, and you can do that. That's the rules now in 2021. Just say you're a man for a few minutes, choose an option, and then go back to identifying as a woman. See, that's it. All right, let's go over here to the chat. Well, Aaron asked about Tszyu and his performance against Takashi Inoue earlier this week, Wednesday in Australia. And look, that was great, man. It was basically a 12-0 shutout, and that's what he needed. The kid needed some rounds, and he was in there with a guy that didn't give him a whole lot of counter fire, right? He didn't have to really walk through much fire. Inoue isn't a hard puncher anyway, but he wasn't going away. He wasn't going anywhere. So he got in 12 good rounds of work. That was good matchmaking. Very, very good matchmaking. Let's see. Mitch says, you look just like the guy in those MOB shirts. Yeah, I get that a lot, man. It's funny. I get that a lot. Taurine says, what's good, MOB family? What's good, Taurine? Hope you're doing well, my man. OJ22 just says, Mike, and peace. And he's saying peace to the chat, too. Let's see. Michael Mendiola in the chat. What's up, my man? He says, happy fight weekend. I'll be in Arizona for the Iron Boy card at Mesa Amphitheater. Two of our guys fighting, Rene Moreno and Maximus Castro. Good luck to you guys, Mendiola. I know that you're keeping busy there in the gym, man. You guys got a lot of fighters that you're working with. I am actually attending fights in Atlanta tonight and tomorrow night. And that's the only reason I'm really not in Vegas right now. Actually, Terry Moss, who I've had on the show a bunch of times, the premier promoter here in Atlanta, she's really, really building something, man. She's not putting on these cards as the promoter. She's doing it at her facility, Buckhead Fight Club, which that's what's so smart about Terry. She has her own gym, and it's not just a gym. There's a whole backstage area and this whole thing. So she has a lot of promoters that rent out her space, and that's what she has tonight and tomorrow. So I'll be there tonight. And tomorrow night, my coach, Christian Steele, who I've told you guys all about, he's actually fighting. He's fighting tomorrow night. So it's going to be great to be there ringside cheering on my coach, man. That's going to be a lot of fun. So no spoilers for the big fight, all right? I'm going to have to turn my phone off because I don't want to see the Twitter stuff. Actually, I think this card here is going to wrap up before the main event starts on ESPN Plus tomorrow night. So I'll be able to probably run home, me and the wife, and then turn on the fight and watch Crawford and Porter. All right, back to the chat. By the way, the phones are open if you guys want to talk about this, man. I'm not going to go crazy long because, I'll go as long, maybe an hour today max. And then I'm going to eat dinner, and we're going to head down to Buckhead Fight Club and check out the fights tonight here. So Aaron with a good question. He says, anyone watching this doo-doo Andrade scrap today? Laugh my ass off. Yeah, for what it's worth, I do think that's a pretty loaded card. Eddie Hearn's not dumb, and he knows that Andrade isn't selling a whole lot of, not a whole lot of people are going to be tuning in to watch him. So he's got a bunch of good fights on that undercard. It's actually a pretty nice card. OJ says he is at full salute. I am too. I got to say, I'm at full salute. I like this fight between Crawford and Porter. And as I talked about on the neutral corner this week on Monday. This is going to kind of be used as a measuring stick. Oh man, the jokes, you could say full salute measuring stick. Oh, but it is because people are going to be wanting to see. I think most people favor Terence Crawford, right? The overwhelming majority of people, he's the betting favorite. How is he going to do versus how Errol Spence, Keith Thurman, and Kell Brook did against Shawn Porter? That's what people are going to want to see. So let's see. Midiola says Tszyu was, as he said, physically stronger in the ring than Inoue. Yeah, the kid's got some strength and some explosiveness to him, man. He does. He absolutely freaking does. Doreen says, yo, Mike, is there any truth to the rumor Teddy Atlas said about TBC leaving Top Rank? Oh, you're talking about Terence Crawford. About Terence Crawford leaving Top Rank after this fight. Look, nothing's set in stone. I haven't heard anything. I do believe this is his last fight, though, with Top Rank under their current contract. That's the way I understand it. So it remains to be seen. By the way, Janibek Alam Kanuli is weighing in for his fight with Hassam Endam. That's the fight that I want to see tomorrow on the undercard because I want to see Janibek. I think that he's got something to him. Endam usually goes rounds and he's a tough guy. And he's been in there with everybody. So I want to see what Janibek does against him. But yeah, man, this is the last fight with Crawford at Top Rank. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen from here with those two. If you talk to Crawford, though, he's been happy with Top Rank so far. You know what I'm saying? He re-signed with them a few years back. I don't know, 2-3 years ago, whatever it was. So anyway, you seem to be pretty good with him. All right, Endam's about to jump on the scale right here. Let's see. Yeah, a few of you guys, OJ's talking about that too, that he heard Teddy say the same thing, that he said it's a guarantee 100%. Well, look, I think Terence Crawford's at the stage of his career where he could kind of go his own path, and maybe he wants to do some one-offs with the PBC, kind of like what Canelo Alvarez did. There's also Eddie Hearn in Matchroom, and you know it wouldn't surprise me to see something way out of left field like that if Crawford went with them. But I would say if Crawford goes with PBC, Janibek about to jump on the scales here. If Crawford goes with PBC, he needs it like written into the contract that by the second fight in, he's fighting Spence. Like that needs to be in the contract, like straight up, I'm fighting Ugas first time around, and then I'm fighting Spence second fight. And like that needs to be in the contract, man. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Let's see. Mitch says, Mike, you should say yes, shaky, and have no sources about people's country. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't. Well, I do have sources. There's people I talk to close to the situation, but like I'm not going to be one of those guys that puts something on record before a fighter or a promoter or somebody puts it on record. You know, I played those games for a while. And sometimes you get burned doing that, man. So I just stopped doing that. Javier Gonzalez in the chat says, I'm gay porn hard. So needless to say, you guys are excited about this fight. You guys are excited about this fight. Matthew says, if Crawford goes network free agent, I don't want to see Mikey Garcia style fights on the zone. Yeah, man. And that's the thing. We're going to learn a lot about I guess the true direction Terence Crawford wants to go in and how he feels about his legacy by what he does going forward. You know, if he signs with PBC and it's just a bunch of touch-up, you know, tune-up fights, or if he goes on the zone and you just kind of see the Mikey Garcia route, then we'll know. You know what I'm saying? We'll know what he wants to do. I'm hoping that he wants, you know, some legacy fights now. He's at this stage of his career where it's kind of like shit or get off the pot time with the welterweight legacy fights. And look, this fight's pay-per-view. It is what it is. If Crawford ends up fighting Ugas and then Spence and like all those fights are pay-per-view and he goes with PBC and does the pay-per-view route, look, PBC is in the pay-per-view business, right? They're not the only ones, of course. I mean, this Top Rank fight, this is a Top Rank / PBC co-promotion, but this is pay-per-view on ESPN Plus. But PBC does a lot of pay-per-views, right? A lot of them. And they got one on January 1st, a $40 pay-per-view. At least they priced it affordably, but damn, that heavyweight card, it's Luis Ortiz versus Charles Martin. Is that a pay-per-view worthy fight? Methinks not. Methinks not. All right. Specifically here, the matchup tomorrow night. When you look at Crawford and Porter, they are the same freaking age, like born in the same month. And they both went pro the same year. What's interesting is Shawn Porter, although he has, I actually think they have the same amount of pro fights. Let me look at this. Because Crawford is 37-0, 28 knockouts. Porter is 31-3-1. So, damn, almost the same amount of fights. So Porter has 35 pro fights. And so born in the same month, went pro the same year, have almost the same amount of fights. But there are differences, right? Porter actually had, I think, the longer amateur career, more amateur fights anyway. I believe he had more amateur fights. And Porter has been a welterweight his whole career. He actually was heavier in the amateurs. And actually, when he went pro, he was 165. And that's kind of around where he fought at in the amateurs. He was a big guy because he played like high school football and stuff. And I'm looking at his first few fights. They were at middleweight, junior middleweight, and he slowly kind of boiled down. And pretty much his whole career, once he was a legitimate, prospect or a legitimate contender and then a title holder and all that, has been at welterweight. So he's a naturally bigger, stronger guy. And that's why Porter has been so durable in his fights against the top level welterweights, right? For Crawford, obviously, he didn't have as many fights in the amateurs as Porter. And he's kind of, I guess, learned a little bit more on the job as a pro, although Porter has definitely improved as a pro, but so has Crawford. But Crawford started as a lightweight, and he's moved up in weight. So that's the difference between these two. Even though Crawford is 5'8", 74-inch reach, and Porter is listed as 5'7", 69-inch reach. So that's kind of interesting that even though he's the shorter, squatter dude, he's just always naturally been a little bigger. So how does that translate to the fight itself? Look, man, in terms of styles, I just think that Crawford, again, a lot of people focus on weight in boxing, and weight matters. But all things being equal, when you're in the same division, a lot of times it's length that matters more than anything. Height is important, but I'd say length is the single greatest measurement when you look at the tail of the tape that I think most affects fights, especially a guy that has the style like Bud. He uses his length better than anybody in the business, man. He gets just maximum length out of his punches. And I think that he's going to be able to establish distance with his jab. Once he switches up to southpaw, I think he's going to start, clearly winning rounds against Porter. And then I think he's going to be able to start catching Porter jumping in, and that's the thing. Is Shawn going to lay back a little bit and just kind of play defense because he's going to jump in a few times and get caught with counters, and he's not going to like that? Is he going to keep going forward and keep going for it, or is he going to lay back? Are we going to kind of see a replay here of what happened between Crawford and Victor Postol, where Postol just kind of went defensive in a survival mode and Bud was cool just coasting and getting the points? Or are we going to see a dust up in the second half of this fight? I do think that it's going to take a few rounds for these guys to get going because both of them have been inactive. Let's see. Bud fought last November against Kell Brook, and then Porter fought last August against Sebastian Formella. So, neither one of these guys has been crazy active. I think they both fought twice in 2019, but it's been a year for Bud, and it's been over a year for Showtime Shawn Porter. So I do think that inactivity, that rust, is going to affect the first few rounds, and then things will get going in the middle rounds. What I want to see is, when does Bud make his adjustment? Because a lot of times in fights, man, that second, third round, he kind of flips that switch, right? It's usually when he switches to southpaw. He'll give up that first round, maybe even the first two rounds, and then he kind of gets serious. So when's that going to happen in this fight? can Porter be competitive enough early on to delay that switch? And maybe we don't see Bud switch over to like the 6th, 7th, 8th round or, later in the fight. Or is Crawford going to be able to turn that switch early on like he normally does? That'll be interesting to see. But of course, at welterweight, Porter's fought the better fighters. Crawford, this is definitely his biggest challenge as a welterweight. Is this his biggest challenge as a pro? Is this the top fighter he's faced? I don't know about that. I really don't. That kind of, to me, that remains to be seen. But I do think that if you look at Crawford's welterweight resume, Jeff Horn, Jose Benavidez Jr., Amir Khan, Egidijus Kavaliauskas, and Kell Brook. Look, Khan and Brook were completely faded past their best. Benavidez, that was before the shot. Okay, so that was a good version of him. Horn never was, a top guy. I think the Kavaliauskas win is somewhat underrated and underappreciated. But I look at that resume, it's not elite. It's not by no means on the level of who Porter has faced, but it's not absolute shit. I think there's enough experience there and different styles that is going to serve him well in this fight. He's ready for a Shawn Porter kind of fight, So I expect him to perform well. I expect a statement performance tomorrow night from Terence Crawford. All right, co-feature just weighed in, Esquivia Falcao, who's going to win this fight against this Canadian guy, Patrice Volney. And I think if Falcao wins this fight, or whoever wins it, the winner is going to be the mandatory for right now Gennady Golovkin, but the winner between Golovkin and Ryota Murata next month, right? Because they're going to unify titles. I think it's the IBF, though, that this is a mandatory for that. So I think Falcao is going to win this fight. I think Golovkin's going to win next month. So I think early next year, you're going to get a Golovkin and Falcao fight. And that's the kind of fight Golovkin wants at this stage in his career. That's the kind of fight he wants to stay busy. He's going to do Falcao early next year. And then later on in the late spring, summer months, I think you're going to see Golovkin fight a top guy. Now, who will that top guy be? We know it ain't Canelo because Canelo's doing the cruiserweight fight. Could it be Andrade? Could it be Munguia? It could be one of those guys. Don't be surprised if next year, if Triple G beats Murata, which again, I think he will, don't be surprised if you see Triple G fight. Esquivia Falcao was going to be his mandatory, I believe. And then Jaime Munguia for his 2 fights. If he does 3 fights, then maybe late in the year, he fights Demetrius Boo Andrade. Maybe. That's if he beats Munguia, which I think he probably will. But maybe we get that at the very end of 2022. If he ends up fighting those 3 guys next year, that's a hell of a run. But I don't know if that's going to happen. Triple G's at the stage of his career where he's kind of doing his thing and he doesn't really give a shit when anybody else wants. That's just where he is in his career. I compare it to, again, where Miguel Cotto was the last couple of years of his career. All right, so I'm looking over here at the weigh-in, and it looks like there's just promo after promo, delay after delay. Hopefully we get to this weigh-in here in a minute. I expect both these guys to totally be on weight. So the weigh-in bros, you can get in now, and you can watch. And you can, look. I love how, like, the weigh-in bros look at weigh-ins and they look at the, a guy's facial mannerisms and do his palms look sweaty? Does he look tired? Does he look dry? And I'm like, I don't know if any of this shit matters. I think if a guy is really having trouble making weight, generally speaking, it's pretty damn obvious. Other than that, just business as usual, man. And that's what I'm expecting here. Okay, back to the chat we go. Matthew, I should say, sorry, says, where are the legacy fights for Crawford if the Spence fight doesn't happen? Great question, because by the way, we still don't know what to say about Errol Spence. he's fought once in over 2 years. It's been 2+ years he has fought once, and that was against Danny Garcia. Not necessarily the best of the best, right? Danny Garcia has never been an elite level welterweight. Don't at me. I don't give a shit. He hasn't been. So is that really on paper, that's a legacy fight? I get it, but I don't know what to think about Errol Spence right now. I will say this. If Crawford wins big tomorrow night, he's number one at 147 for me. He's bumped up past Errol Spence at that point. I don't give a shit who has all the hardware. I know that Spence has more belts, but if Crawford definitively beats Porter tomorrow, he's the number one welterweight in the world. I don't want to hear it. And it's going to be interesting to see where people fall on that between Crawford and Spence, and how consistent or inconsistent those same people are with their heavyweight ratings, because right now most people rate Fury as the number one guy, even though it's Usyk who has all the hardware. Similar situation up there. But the only difference is Spence has not been busy. Anyway, back to your question. Legacy fights. Well, that's why Crawford has to be very careful about the moves he makes business-wise if he cares about legacy. If he signs with PBC, you got Ugas, who just beat Pacquiao. That's a very winnable fight for Crawford. He grabs another belt, and he beats the guy that beat Pacquiao. And then there's Spence. And if the Spence fight can't happen, well, then it just is what it is. Maybe a fight between him and Tank Davis. Yeah, right. That's pretty much it. Okay. If he stays with Top Rank, if he re-signs with Top Rank, there are guys like Josh Taylor, Teofimo Lopez. Those fights could happen. So those would be big fights, legacy fights. Does he want that? I don't know, because he's going to make more money and probably get more accolades from the American press fighting Errol Spence than he would for Josh Taylor. That's just the way it is, but if he goes with Matchroom and stuff, I don't know if any of those fights can happen. So it really depends on what business move he makes. But there's not a whole lot there right now. Honestly, there's really not. However, if Spence doesn't get back in the ring anytime soon, he's eventually going to be stripped, and there will be opportunities for Crawford and other guys to fight for those open belts. Aaron says Spence is retired and was never anything special. Ooh. Oh, man. OJ says Ortiz versus Martin should be on Fox. Yeah. And you're already going up against like college football. In the United States, college football is king, right? And so you're going up against college, the biggest day. I want to say it's the biggest day. You correct me if I'm wrong, guys, because I'm not a college football guy. But I think January 1st is like the day for college football. It's all the bowl games. So you're already going up against that. You're going to make it worse by going on pay-per-view. You could take advantage of all those bowl games and program, time-wise, program your card around some of those bowl games on regular Fox or something. That would make way more sense. But they're doing the pay-per-view route to make a little bit more money. I think they're hoping that, hey, if this thing does 50,000 pay-per-views, that's probably enough money to feed everybody. And so that's what they're more concerned with. Andrew Smith in the chat says, Bud's reflexes and power are scary at welterweight. Yeah, we're going to find out here in this fight against Porter. We really are going to find out. MNTM says, speed and technique are far more important. I concur. And that's why I think Canelo is going to decisively beat Ilunga Makabu when they fight early next year. All right, so I'm listening in right now. Shawn Porter is about to get on the scale. All right. Fighting out of Los Angeles by way of Nevada, originally from Ohio. All right. He's wearing a jacket. All right, so they invited him up onto the stage. I don't know. Is he? I guess he's gonna disrobe now. I don't get the mask. It's really stupid. Most of the people on the stage are not wearing a mask. It must be something with the Nevada Commission. All right. So stripped down to his undies. He's still got the mask on though. Let's see what he weighs. About to jump on that scale. Wearing Ghostbusters boxers. That's awesome. 146.6 pounds for Shawn Porter. Pulls down the mask to smile. The mask is such cosmetic theater. It's just so stupid. All right. Terence Crawford making his way up. And he's just wearing boxers with shoes and a t-shirt, taking off the t-shirt. I love it. And he's just going to go right onto the scale, all business. All right. Bud is on the scale. Let's see. I couldn't hear it. 146.4 for Bud. So we have a fight, ladies and gentlemen. Both guys on weight. Not surprised. Now, I know a bunch of people that are at this fight, media people and fans. I know a bunch of people who made the trip out there. So I can't wait to just get everyone's reports on TNC Monday about the atmosphere there. I'm expecting a good atmosphere. I really am. All right. Here comes the face-off. Vicenzino asks, do I speak Italian? Sì, parlo un poco di italiano. Perché quando ero bambino ho imparato un poco di italiano di mia nonna di Sicilia. So just a little bit. All right, intense stare down. And you can see the height difference, but a little taller, a little longer, shoulders up a little higher. I don't know, Wayne Bros. You see anything here? I don't see any. I think both of these guys are consummate professionals, and they are going to put on a good fight tomorrow night. These are both two very, very professional prize fighters, very, very experienced, and it's all business for these guys. Both in outstanding shape. Didn't expect anything different. It's funny looking at Tim Bradley on these broadcasts because his face gets a little puffier with each show. His head gets rounder and rounder. Like he's got the roundest face, the roundest head. It's funny as hell. He's just, I don't know. He's just got a really round head. It just looks funny to me. Well, I don't know what else to say here. Matthew in the chat says, is it inevitable this fight goes past 10 rounds? I would definitely bet the over. If that's the over-under, I would bet the over. I do expect this. It's likely this is going the distance. However, I do think there's a strong possibility that that Bud could stop him. If he does stop him, it's probably going to be late. But I do think there's a strong possibility that Crawford could do that. So I don't know what the betting odds are and all that, but it's again, it's probably going the distance, but there is a solid chance that that Bud could stop him, and I think that would be a huge, huge statement. But Porter has been dropped before, but he's never been like seriously hurt. He's such a durable guy for that weight. Trey Anner in the chat says college football all day and night on January 1st. Yeah, man, that's what I thought. It's so weird to do a pay-per-view going up against like the Super Bowl of college football, basically. And Trey says that Porter was wearing a mask to secure a huge payday. Yeah, I feel you on that. Definitely. He's getting a payday. Both these guys are. All right, so let's see what else is in the chat. Chenzino says it's going all 12. Porter's too tough. Yeah, that's what I would guess. That's what I would guess. Porter is going to take Diaz horn type of damage, says Punch Quote. Yeah, very, very possible. Taurine with a bold pick. He says TKO 8. I think that would be a statement. That would be a real statement. Nick Undisputed said Bradley always had a hard head. Now it's crazy round. Dude, his head is like a perfect circle. It looks like a milk dud. Like, for real. It's just like that perfect, like an M&M, like a perfect circle. Like, that's hilarious. Flory F says, enjoy your content, Mike. Thanks from 6,000 kilometers away. Damn, 6,000 kilometers. Thank you so much for watching. Where are you at, Flory? 6,000 kilometers. I'm trying to think. Is that about 2,000 miles? So you're somewhere on the East Coast. I'm guessing. Somewhere on the East Coast. G Funky in the chat. What's up, G Funky? He says, what up, Michael Montero? What up? Hispanics causing panic. I'll be on their show next Wednesday. We actually just got that secured today. So I'll be on that show, guys. So if you check them out, next Wednesday is a tune-up before Turkey Day. I'll be on their show. I'll actually be traveling up to my sister's house. So, you know, you might hear like babies screaming in the background and shit, and people arguing while they drink, because it's going to be a bunch of family coming to her house. But I will find a quiet little area to jump on that show. Mitch says, when Tim fought Devin Alexander, it was all about large heads. Man, that fight, that was such a disappointment, man. I was so excited for that fight, and they put that one on in Detroit. Made no sense why they put it on in Detroit, but it was exciting, and it just did not live up to what we thought it was going to be. It was such a letdown. Trey says the over-under is 10.5. I'd bet the over. I'm trying to think. When was Porter dropped? Porter was dropped in the 11th round by Spence. Now, I think Crawford hits every bit as hard as Spence does, and he actually can hit you with shots you don't see coming. So, like, Taurine's pick of TKO 8, like, that wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me. But I still, if I was a betting man, which I'm not, I would bet the over. Justin says, my bookie's garbage site doesn't even have Bud Porter available to bet on yet. What? That's crazy, man. That is crazy. G Funky says Crawford, UD 9-3. Yeah, that's like the most likely. That's like the safe bet. You know what I'm saying? Like 117, 111, 118, 110, something like that. But Mitch did the math. 6,000 kilometers is 3,728 miles. Damn, I was way off. I knew it was at least 2,000, 2 or 3,000. I didn't know it was that much. OJ, it was at the Silverdome. Yeah, man, it was at the old Silverdome before the roof caved in. That's so Detroit. You know, the Pontiac Silverdome chills vacant for years. And then I think there was like a big snowstorm. I can't remember exactly what did it, but the infrastructure of it was so bad or whatever. The roof just caved in. And it's like, yeah, that's so Detroit, man. I love it. Keith in the chat, he says, Porter is going to make it tough in the beginning, and the onus is on Crawford to adapt and take over. I concur, sir. He says, if he stops Porter, Spence will have to fight Crawford or move up. Yeah, you're right, though, about this. The onus here is on Bud Crawford. Everybody's been waiting for this kind of matchup for him. And all the people that have been talking up the PBC welterweights for all these years, you know, there's been a lot of people saying this welterweight division is the most loaded division in boxing. You know, the PBC welterweights are the best, you know, all this, that, the other. Crawford needs to fight one of them. Well, you got your wish. So if you do see a dominant win by Crawford, I don't want to hear, Porter wasn't much anyway. Porter already lost. You know, he's Errol Spence's leftovers, Keith Thurman's leftovers. You know, I don't want to hear that kind of shit. He was past his best. because y'all need to be consistent on this, okay? If Crawford goes in there, it puts on a show, and decisively wins, give the man his credit. Please give the man his credit. By the way, if Crawford does move over to PBC, it will be interesting to see how certain narratives change among certain fight fans and media outlets. And I use air quotes when I say media. OJ says, I was going to go, but not at the Silverdome. Should have been at the Palace. Yeah, I think it would have been better at the Palace, but even the Palace is way out in Auburn Hills, man. They should have did that at the Joe. I thought, put that downtown. That is what's crazy now, man, is none of those places exist, or at least not like they once were. I mean, Old Tiger Stadium, just everything. And now downtown, it's Little Caesars Arena. And I can't get used to saying Little Caesars Arena. Just growing up, we had Tiger Stadium, Joe Louis Arena, like these historic names, right? The Palace, the Silverdome. And now it's Little Caesars Arena. It's just like so ridiculous what we've gotten with all this naming. By the way, in Staples, downtown LA, the old Staples Center is now what? CryptoSomething.com. What the hell is that? What the hell, man? These names, man. All right, looks like we got one call from Keith. We'll take one call, and then we'll probably bounce out of here, guys. Let's see what Keith's got to say. Keith, what's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, Mike, what's going on? Good, man. Happy Friday.
You too.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, kind of like I mentioned earlier in the chat, I think that Crawford's gonna make it really, really tough for Crawford, and this is going to be the test, litmus test to see if Crawford is that guy per se, which I think he is, and he's gonna dominate the latter half of the fight, if not stop him. I like Porter. He's a nice guy, but I like to see Crawford stop him just to make a statement. And
yeah.
I guess after this fight, I don't know what he's going to do. It'd be stupid if he starts backwards, stays the top rank. I like to see him ideally like sign with Hearn or PBC. Hearn would be nice just because he get a lot more exposure, but he might encounter the same BS though. So I don't know, because it seems like these PBC guys do not want to fight anyone, to be honest with you.
I hear you, man. Yeah, I don't like, again, if he signs with PBC, he's got to be real careful and say, like, in the contract, I'm fighting this dude and that dude and that dude. Like, it needs to be stipulated in the contract.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and hopefully he gets the Spence fight. We'll see. I mean, I don't know what Spence is going to do when he's coming back. Have you heard anything about that?
No, nothing that I'm going to put on the record. Okay. I mean, I have friends at Top Rank and stuff. But I'm not going to put anything out there with that. So I honestly do not know.
Okay. And then one more question I want to ask you. I came on the show late, but I don't know if did you go over anything about the potential Canelo fight moving up?
Yeah, I actually did a video on my channel about that the other day. He's probably going to fight McAboo in May, and it's going to be at 190. Yeah. So the WBC has moved cruiserweight back down to 190. So like, I can't remember when they changed it, but that's like going back 20 years, bro. So what I want to know is what happens if somebody wants to unify. If you have the IBF cruiserweight belt and you want to unify with the WBC, what weight is it at? 190 or 200? Like, this is crazy. This is just crazy.
It is crazy, and that kind of brings up the whole weight from that. So basically, Canelo probably walks around at at least 180 pounds, right? 185 pounds at super middleweight at this point. He's pretty big.
Yeah,
I'm gonna assume.
Yeah, he's not going to move up that much in weight for this fight. He's really not.
Yeah. So I was having a conversation with someone on Facebook about Roe Jones Jr. And when he jumped up, quote unquote, 20 pounds to fight John Ruiz, he's a light heavyweight, and light heavyweights walk around at 185 to 190 pounds. Roe Jones Jr. weighed in at 193 pounds. Then he lost all this weight when he came back down. My question is, if he's probably walking around at least 185 pounds, close to 190. How much weight did he actually put on for that fight?
I think it's not going to be necessarily about the weight he puts on. I think it's going to be, he's going to do things differently in camp, and he's not going to melt as much off. So he is going to put on a little bit of muscle, but I don't think he's going to put on that much, honestly. It's just going to be a different process in camp, scientifically. Yeah.
Would you consider this a cherry pick, or would you consider this more of like just more of a strategic matchmaking?
I'm not going to call it a cherry pick, but he's picking the worst title holder right now at cruiserweight. It's just like he did with Kovalev. When he fought Kovalev was the weakest title holder. He barely held on to his title against a prospect, Anthony Yard, who traveled all the way to Russia for that fight. And that was 8 weeks before he fought Canelo. So it's an opportunistic title grab. That's just the way I'd word it.
Yeah, I actually think this title grab is a little bit more legitimate than when he fought Kovalev, because Kovalev, most people don't realize that he only had an 8-week turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
I remember actually, because I was at a wedding and I was watching the fight. Ironically, I was on the East Coast. Joe Smith was there too, and then I saw the results, and then I thought, Canelo's fighting him. It's like 7 or 8 weeks there, and then he was knocked out twice before that. And I think after the second war fight, he was not the same. And then he gets knocked out again by the Storm. I think it was guys lesson with Alvarez as well too, where he comes back and wins, but it's not the same. So I feel like this fight is a little bit more legitimate. Maku has some serious power as well, but there's such a big gap in skill set, or there's a large gap in skill set, that Canelo should convincingly win, and then he's a 5-division champion. But the good thing is, it seems like it might push fighters at 168, 175, and 160 to maybe fight each other to make themselves more compelling, to fight Canelo when he returns back after whatever happens.
I honestly, that's the hope, but it's really only 6 months. It's 6 months from now. These guys fight once or twice a year. So do I think that suddenly, magically, next April, May, or June, we're going to see Charlo and Benavidez fight, or Andrade and Charlo fight? No, I don't. I don't think anything's going to change. I think these guys are going to continue to sit around and wait for the Canelo lottery. It's not going to change anything.
Yeah, well, apparently Charlo's rich now, so he doesn't need to fight it. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, appreciate it, and really appreciate the show. And I went listening to other podcasts. I just really appreciate your objectivity. You're always right on point and everything as well too. So thank you again.
Thanks a lot, brother. Have a good weekend, man.
You too.
All right.
Cheers. Bye.
All right, guys. I think that's going to do it. OJ in the chat says Tiger Stadium was good times, smoking tree in the bleacher seats. Dude, the best thing about Tiger Stadium is when I was a kid, we would go and tickets were cheap as hell because the Tigers sucked, right? I'm talking late 80s, early 90s, okay? Because they won the World Series in 84. But late 80s, early 90s, I don't know if you remember Cecil Fielder. That was the team. Cecil Fielder was the team, right? And so everybody went to see Cecil Fielder. There was a couple years there where he was like one of the top home run guys. But you could get tickets at the upper deck cheap as fuck. I'm talking like just a few dollars. It must have been $5, $10, something like that. So we go, and like my dad would take me, my uncle, whatever. We go there. We go to like Greektown, get a Coney's, whatever. And then we go to the game. But by the 5th, 6th inning, all the ushers and shit, they were all high and drunk. They weren't checking. We would just go all the way down. And as kids, we would be down like behind the catcher. No one would say shit, and nobody was in the stadium anyway. It was half empty. So we just go down there, and we have kick-ass seats because there was nobody down there. And as long as we didn't like mouth off and get too rowdy or whatever, nobody would say shit. Nobody would be like, oh, you can't be here. But just went down there and hung out. So that was some of my funner memories of Tiger Stadium because they were so shitty. No one was at the games. You buy the cheapest damn seat in the house and just walk down to the floor level. We did that all the time, man. And back then, like, you could just do that. It was never an issue. All right. Women of the night in the chat. What's up, women of the night? He says, Mike, any thoughts on the weigh-in, Bud and Porter? Nah, business as usual. These guys are absolute professionals. They've been there, done that. They both look in great shape. I expect them to put on a good show tomorrow. I truly, truly do. And I'm a fan of both of these fighters, particularly Shawn Porter as a human being. I really think Shawn is an awesome guy. And I've always been a fan of Terence Crawford as a fighter. I really do think he's one of the best in the world. Mitch Pryor says Cleveland was the same. Hell yeah, man. Hey, Cleveland, man. What is it? Mayfield Ave, I think. Mayfield, is that the little Italy there? Mayfield Ave, and then the Flats, and then what was the other area where there was some clubs and bars and shit? By the river or something. I can't remember what it was called, but there was a fun area, man. We used to have fun getting trashed there. Good times, good times. All right, guys. On that note, I'm gonna get ready to go to these fights here in Atlanta. We got fights here tonight and tomorrow night, so I'm gonna go support boxers in my community, including my coach Christian Steele. Can't wait to see him fight. That's gonna be fun at Buckhead Fight Club. Enjoy the fights, guys. Enjoy your weekend. We'll see you at TNC Monday. All right. Have a great weekend, guys. Love yous.